the new founding fathers and America, a nation reborn. May God be with you all.
Welcome to the house at Hammer, built by the nation for the nation. Welcome to Raider Nation News today. I am your host, your resident tribal chief, Hammer. Hope everybody's having a great day wherever you guys are at. If it's your first time in here, please don't let it be your last. Break them thumbs, hit them subs, smash the bell to stay up to date with all your Raiders news, rumors, updates, live streams, and reactions. We do have a special guest backstage for this edition of Vault Talk, and we are bringing in Marcus Johnson of Tape Don't Lie on YouTube. Let's get him into the room. Welcome to the Vault, bro. How's everything? I definitely appreciate you coming on today.
No problem, man. No problem. Thank you for having me.
Let's get right into it. How is this whole Jimmy Garoppolo situation looking for the Raiders right now? And with him being out till probably training camp, what does this mean for quarterback Brian Hoyer and Aiden O'Connell?
So I think what it means for the Raiders, I think it means a lot of uncertainty, in my opinion. I think that, when you go into training camp, especially with an injury like this, with an older player, you have to think about how quickly is he going to be up to speed and how quickly is he going to be playing at a high level. Like, even with, different types of players dealing with injuries, it takes a little bit while, even when they come back, to get a good feel and get a good trust of playing on that foot. So that's going to kind of be the issue with me with Jimmy Garoppolo. It's because, of course, he's got to get ready. He's got to get on the same, program with Adams and Myers and all those other guys. And I think that will happen over time. But I think the biggest thing is the confidence in him and him being an older player. He's an older guy, and he's having dealing with all these injuries. When are they going to start piling up on him and, kind of affecting his play? And that's what I'm a little bit worried about with him too, as well. I think with Brian Hoyer and Aiden O'Connell, I think it's going to be interesting to see how they decide that plays out. Do they, does Aiden O'Connell actually, if he plays better than Brian Hoyer, does he have a chance to, take that spot or that number 2 spot, or is that set for Brian Hoyer, and Brian Hoyer is going to be the starter if Jimmy Garoppolo is not out there? So, preseason is going to be interesting. I don't know if it's going to matter that much. They might already have it set in stone if they want Brian Hoyer to play if Jimmy Garoppolo is not going to be ready to go. But it will still be concerning if Brian Hoyer is out there week 1, because that will tell us a lot more about this injury, and they're being so quiet about it and being like so hush that it got you a little worried about what the actual status is. I mean, him talking about anxiety and stuff like that yesterday didn't make me feel good about it, but we'll see how it goes.
Well, talking about last weekend and the details that came out pertaining to the contract as well, like Raider Nation went nuts over this whole situation. Why didn't they tell us? How did you feel about Jimmy G's contract when you saw the details, especially as it pertains to the way it was written? With the injury waiver, the out clause, do you think Jimmy G will pass his physical and be ready come week 1?
I think he'll pass the physical. I think he'll be fine. I think he'll be ready. I don't know if he'll be ready week 1. That's what I'm worried about. I'm pretty sure he'll pass the physical. Will he be ready week 1? I don't know. And how ready will he be? How much work does he get in training camp? Is he coming back in the middle of training camp? Is he sit out training camp at all? Is he be limited all through training camp? Sometimes in training camp, some of those guys are injured. They don't even practice. Right? Is he going to practice even though he's injured? Is it smart to practice him if he has an injury? That's the things that you have to think about with Jimmy Garoppolo more than him passing the physical. I think he'll be fine on that, right? Because I think they set it up where he's going to pass the physical, right? Because he didn't pass it the first time. They suggested what he should get. He's going to get it. He get healed. Now he'll be able to pass it the second time. So I think it's set up for him to pass it. It's just more about like how good are you going to be and how ready you're going to be? Are you even going to practice through training camp? I know you're not going to play a preseason game. We already know that is out the window now, right? So, but are you going to be full go? The previous quarterback Derek Carr didn't play in preseason either, but he was full go in practice. Are you going to be full go in practice, or are you going to be sitting on the sidelines watching Brian Hoyer, right? Because he needs those full mental reps. I don't care what he's been in this offense before. I mean, it's 7 years ago,
Right.
so it's going to take a little bit for him to get back onto it.
And I do think like the signing of Hoyer was that guy to put there in the middle to help reacclimate Jimmy Garoppolo to the system that he has not played in about 7 years, and also to help mentor Aiden O'Connell and help him develop and learn this system. I don't want to say as quickly as possible, but he's here. He's going to have to learn this in a decent amount of time in the event that his number is called up as well. Um, Now, we discussed earlier this week on my show, we were talking about the offensive line, and we had a consensus down the board that at this point in time, that really the one spot on the offensive line that's up for grabs is going to be the right guard position. We do know that PFF had Jermaine Illuminor and Colton Miller ranked ninth or 10th when it came to best tackle duos in the league this past season. I think going into last year, Illuminor knew that this was going to be his last shot. Like, he squandered away opportunities before, but he really stepped up, minus the penalties and everything. Who do you think could potentially win that spot at right guard, or who's your favorite to become the Raiders' starting right guard come week one?
I mean, I probably would go with Van Rotten. I think that the new guy that came in from the Bills, I think has probably the leg up. He comes from a similar system. I mean, over there in Buffalo, Brian DeBall came from the Patriots too. Ken Dorsey kind of followed what Brian DeBall likes to do, so he has a little bit of idea of what their protection scheme is. So he has a little bit of a leg up, not full leg up on bars, but he's just a better player, right? I think he right now he kind of is maybe the best right guard that they have, just from what he's able to do so far in his career. And he's been kind of a steady, solid guard, and not a great guard, not really an average guard, but he's definitely way better than Alex Barr. So I think he has a leg up there. I think right tackle, because even guard, I think Illuminor might kick inside if they like Brandon Parker. I think Brandon Parker is a very wild card here. I don't think that Illuminor has that job. I don't think that it's just a for sure thing. Even we could do all the PFF and all the other good stuff. Brandon Parker still has 35-inch arms, and he's still 6'5", and he's still huge, and he was going to be the starter last year. Albert Breer, all through the whole season while he was out, act like he was like a big missing piece for the offensive line. He's a big tapped in guy. I wouldn't sleep on Brandon Parker coming in and starting week one at right tackle if he makes it and doesn't get hurt. That would not shock me. And they might kick Illuminor inside because he played guard there too, and they might think that's their best five with Miller, Parham, James, Illuminor, and Parker. That might be their best five.
Right.
And they might consider that and might decide that because Illuminor, he has a history of playing guard too. And like I said, they really like Brandon Parker. But if Illuminor beats out Brandon Parker, then I would go with Van Rotten playing guard there.
The one thing that we saw last year when it came to the
I'll rotate.
draft and then even going through training camp was the guys that they brought in, Thayer Munford, Dylan Parham. These guys are very, very versatile on that line. You can plug and play them just about anywhere. Now, I know that there were talks last week about certain guys as well trying to fight for these spots. And one guy that stood out last year throughout the preseason that we thought potentially could have ran at right guard was Thayer Munford. Now,
Mm.
he played a lot more at the right guard position at Ohio State, and a lot of people have been very high on him as recently as this past week as a guy that could potentially be fighting for that right guard spot, especially his size. Like, that would be a pretty big deal and an upgrade, in my opinion, for a kid of his size, his stature, and this the coaching staff just giving him so much praise, even as far back as last year. Like, what would you think of Thayer Mumford being a right guard for us?
Yeah, it'd be interesting. I mean, because he hasn't played guard in college, and even when he played in college, he played left guard. And my thing with Dylan Parham last year was that Parham he was fantastic at right, but for some reason they played him at left all year where he struggled, and I never understood that. Like we saw him play 2 games at right guard, he was great, and then Then he's playing left guard, and he's not so good because he played right guard in college, right? And that was where he played his spot. And the same thing goes with Thayer Munford. Playing right guard is a little different than playing left guard. And that sounds crazy when I say that, but it is. It is a different type of look. Sometimes, it's like, sometimes they even say playing right tackle and left tackle is switching to becoming a switch hitter in baseball. There's a lot of people make those comparisons. So I think him playing right guard would be interesting. I think he has the size to do it. He's not as athletic as he should be for a right tackle. So, I mean, moving him inside would be not a bad idea. I think he would just struggle a little bit getting used to the adjustment. And I thought he played pretty well at right tackle. I didn't think he played pretty well for a rookie for a 7th-round pick.
Right.
That even, trying to bring him back Brandon Parker was a little interesting with that. That's why I think Brandon Parker is really somebody they really like, because you had Thayer Munford who could back up Illuminor and be fine and kind of have the same little size. I mean, he's not as athletic as Brandon Parker was, but he has that same type of size. So them bringing back Brandon Parker was interesting for Munford as well, and what they thought of him and his evaluation. But him kicking inside wouldn't be the worst idea.
I do think that, like, realistically right now, we see the depth at 3 different positions right now. Like, the offensive line is full of at depth right now. Our defensive line, the same thing. And also our receivers. Like, we have a depth chart right now of receivers, 11 receivers deep. When it comes to, now we're going to go to the other side of the ball real quickly, the defensive line, especially with what we heard from Patrick Graham, Chandler Jones, who's now at 250 pounds, which I'm kind of under the assumption we might see him playing some outside linebacker this season. How do you feel after hearing Patrick Graham's press conference the other day and what he was talking up when it came to the defensive line?
I think the defensive line has some interesting aspects to it. I think the interior is still a little on, the weaker side. I think that they don't have a strong player that you could feel like that you feel confident in going into the season, unless Neil Farrell and Matthew Butler take a leap. Now, I was a huge Neil Farrell guy, and they've been talking about Neil Farrell lost a lot of weight. He's come in way better shape than he did last year, and I bet that is the truth, because you could tell throughout the season he was getting leaner as the season went along. So you could tell they had some kind of program with him working there. And I think that's going to be the biggest factor for the defensive line is, do those 2 guys take a next step? Because you drafted those guys. I know they drafted a lot higher 5th-round guys. Sometimes you just can't expect them to come in and be superstars. But, they are expecting growth from Matthew Butler. They're expecting growth from Neil Farrell. So I think those 2 guys are going to make a big deal of how this team gets better at the defensive line position. I think Brian Young is a good player that's going to, he's going to be solid and just do his job type of player. And, these guys love those type of guys. So I think for the D-line interior, it's still has some holes in it that maybe you would say that you're not too confident going into the season. I think outside rusher, I think you're still pretty good there with Max and Chandler Jones. I think, even with Tyree Wilson coming in there, and maybe he might not be practicing either, and you might not see a lot of him this year, in my opinion, just kind of dealing with that injury, unless he kind of just gets ready for training camp. Because if he's not going to be, is he going to be full going training camp? That's my thing too. I don't think he will. I think he'd be limited. You already see them sometimes, maybe in like some drills, but I don't think he'd be full go. So it's gonna be interesting to see how that D line kind of grows, right? Because there's a lot of young guys that if they take a leap, it could be a real good defensive line. If they don't take a leap, it's going to be kind of like it was last year, which is Max just doing everything he can, and Chandler just being kind of old and being solid and not being worth 17 million, looking like he's more worth 8 million instead of 17.
Damn.
But he's a good player, though. I mean, it's true. He was solid last year. It just wasn't like 17 million.
No, he was solid. He was solid towards the tail end, and that's what everybody was going like. Oh, we wasted this. Like when the season first started. Oh, he's a bust. We wasted all this money. Da da da. And I was telling my viewers for the longest time, like, look, it's not about stat lines. It's not about how many sacks you're getting a game. Like, if he's following a specific defensive scheme, like, hey, we want you to contain here, don't over pursue, da 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 da, then cool. But people were just flying off the hinges when it came to Chandler Jones, and then towards the tail end, like, people started to come around with his performance. We do know the presser he had the other day, after the injury he sustained towards the tail end of the season, he said with the elbow, surgery was not required, which is a great thing to hear, because that was one thing, especially when it came to us drafting Tyree Wilson, that I had questions about Chandler Jones before we even drafted Tyree Wilson. It's like, what is his deal right now? We haven't heard a single thing from him. Is he going to retire? Like, what's the plan here moving forward? And he's here. He looks like he's in great shape. He's ready to go. So being that as it is right now, like he also during his presser, he's already mentoring an undrafted free agent, Adam Plant, who we had on our show um, shortly after the draft, and to hear the things that Chandler Jones was saying about this kid, another one out of UNLV, um,
Mhm.
it definitely speaks volumes for what this team and what this defense is trying to do. Like they're trying to build a solid foundation. The things that they're doing on and off the field, building that chemistry, I think is going to pay dividends moving forward. I'm just looking forward to training camp already getting here and us getting through the preseason.
Yeah, yeah. With Patrick Graham and that defense, I'm a big Patrick Graham fan. I've always been a fan of his scheme and all those things he likes to do. I just wish they would give him some studs, give him some more studs that he could work with, that he can kind of, instead of him trying to, make this a secondary that's just not the greatest names in the world, and turn him into the best secondary just because of his scheme. And you really can't do that as much in the NFL. I always talk about Jonathan Gannon at Philadelphia Eagles. I mean, if you remember from 2021, the Raiders, they went up there and chopped them up, that same scheme, right? He didn't even complete a pass. They did a ball didn't touch the ground that game.
Right.
And then he goes against Shannon. He gets like Gardner Jones, and then he gets Darius Slay mixed with Bradbury, and then he gets some guys in the interior to pass rush. He fixes the secondary a little bit, and all of a sudden he gets a job somewhere. So it's really about talent sometimes. So he's gonna have to kind of uplift the talent on this team to get the most out of this defense, because I think in the secondary, I still think there's a little bit of they don't have as much talent as you would like in the secondary in the passing league. And yeah, his scheme is really good, and he's going to have some good schemes every once in a while that's going to just get to catch teams off guard. But every once in a while, there's guys on the other side going to be more talented than the corner in front of him. He's going to beat him, and that's going to happen sometimes. And I think that's going to his biggest issue. I just wish they would give him more. And I don't think coaches ever gave him a lot. That's why I don't like him. Even in New York, he did pretty well with some guys that you wouldn't even think of at the secondary.
He
So
had a solid defensive line. He also had James Bradbury and a couple other guys. So it's like, and everybody was like hoping and wishing, like, oh, he had these guys on defense. Like, what can he do for us? And
mhm.
Marcus Peters, if you're watching, please, please just sign with us. Even if it's a year, please sign with us, dude. Um, Excluding the Chiefs, what other AFC West team are you most concerned about going into this season?
I mean, of course, it's the Chargers. The Chargers are still talented. I just got to wait for them to charge eventually. But they're still a talented team. They're gonna mess up at some point. This is gonna happen. Guys gonna get injured. I don't know what's gonna happen to them, but they're still a team to worry about. I mean, the quarterback, he's gonna get better. On film, it's pretty interesting. I thought he played a little bit. He had the big numbers in 2021, 2022. He didn't have big numbers, but if you watch him on film, he still looked like he was getting better as a quarterback and learning systems. They got a whole new system coming in there too, so there's going to be a little adjustment there for them, because the system they came from was terrible. This guy's a little better. Kellen Moore, he's led some great offenses over there. Dallas fan might tell you he sucks, but we'll see. People get tired of people after 4 years of not winning the Super Bowl. So we'll see how that goes. They still got a bunch of talented players. They got Derrick James, Joey Bosa, Nick, Khalil Mack. They got all those guys over there. They still got Mike Williams, Keenan Allen. They still got Rashad Slater. They still got a pretty damn good offensive line. So, it's going to be, who knows what's going to happen to them, but that's the other team to worry about, in my opinion. Of course, the Broncos are there, but I'm not really worried about the Broncos too much.
The Broncos have not beat the Las Vegas Raiders since we've been in Vegas, so I'm not
Yeah.
overly concerned. And with this whole thing with Sean Payton and Russell Wilson, like I'm thinking that Sean Payton will in fact check Russell Wilson, like, yeah, your office is gone, your 5 parking spaces are gone, like let's get back to playing football. But I won't hold my breath, because every single year these analysts, these reporters will come into a season. The Broncos are a quarterback away from being a Super Bowl contender. Yeah, okay, that's a dub. That's
Yeah.
a dub. So I don't know what to expect from them, but I think it's probably going to be what we've seen these last couple of years, especially if Russell Wilson can't seem to get his shit together.
Yeah.
Um, I had a question from one of my viewers. Shout out to Raider Primos. He asked, "Will the Raiders' offense be better under Jimmy G?"
Uh, in my opinion, it all depends on Josh Jacobs. All right, I'm gonna tell you all that. If Josh Jacobs has to have the year that he had last year, which is what we're. I mean, it's going to be really tough. I mean, we need some more running backs, in my opinion, because I think Jimmy G behind this offensive line, if they play like they did last year, I know some people say that they played pretty well last year, but if they played like they did last year, he's going to be in trouble. And I think that's kind of my issue of me trying to say that they're going to be better, because he is really terrible under pressure. And I like clean pocket, he's fine. Clean pocket, he's good. But under pressure, he's terrible. And it's really bad. It kind of just, you see the worst kind of quarterback irks you can think of. And I think that's kind of the issue I have, is I don't trust the offensive line with him. Like, if it was a different quarterback who could make some guys miss eventually and, do some things and get out of the pocket and make some plays, outside of that, I would feel better about this offensive line. But as soon as somebody gets beat in the middle, man, it's over. It's really nothing. He can't like adjust it. He can't do anything like that. So if he's not able to get the ball off, and then let's say they get to the point where they're getting rid of the ball so quickly to protect him,
Right.
That's what I'm more worried about, when they don't throw the ball downfield and they're trying to dink and dunk and do all these things. And then if Josh Jacobs is not the premier runner that he was last year, like, because let's say he goes just 300 yards down, that's 300 yards difference, right? If he could have a big season, have 1,300 yards, right? But he had 1,600 last year.
Right.
So if he goes down to 1,300, it's still a really good year. But there's 300 yards missing that we have to add up with Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's never thrown the ball over 500 times. So if it's hard to trust him, especially with a defense that you're a little worried about. If they're down, are you gonna be able to throw the ball 40 times with Jimmy Garoppolo? He's never done it. So it's just something that it's gonna be interesting to see how he works. I think it's gonna be a lot on Josh Jacobs. That's why I feel like they gotta pay him. I don't see the difference between a 10.9 million and 13. So that's just me. I don't see where the mess up is here. Like, what it was, it's just $2 million. So all you got to give him is $2 million more. He's the seventh highest paid running back in the NFL right now with the franchise tag. You just can't make him the fourth. Like, I don't understand it. Like, I don't understand how that thought process is with him. But they need to figure that out, because this offense is really dependent on him, in my opinion, to go. Because if Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have a run game, they're in trouble. And
I've given my projection, or like if I was a GM, like my offer, maybe 4 years, anywhere around the ballpark of like $52 to $54 million, with about 40 million guaranteed. Like, a 4-year deal. Like, he wants to finish his career at 30. He wants to finish a Raider. I had the opportunity to meet him at the Pro Bowl. We had this discussion. He wants to finish a Raider. Hashtag pay JJ8. Hashtag pay baby beast mode. But we want you here. And because you brought him up, I'm just going to ask you this final question. Will this contract be resolved? Will he be on the Raiders roster come week 1?
They have to. They don't have a choice, in my opinion, to be, because that's what I'm talking about. They know this. Josh McDaniels knows this, that he has to run the ball through him. That's why Josh Jacobs knows it too, because Josh Jacobs is like, you're playing through me. I mean, I forgot what interview he said that, but if you're gonna if you're gonna put everything on me and give me 340 carries, you have no idea what that means for running back. He had a lot of carries last year. Right. That needs to come down a little bit, right? In my opinion, because I think Zamir White. That's why Zamir White needs to step up, because we can't be giving him the ball 350 times again, especially with his injury history. And because if he goes down, man, then it's really gonna be bad. So so we need Zamir White to step up a little bit too. But they don't have a choice, man. I mean, he really is the offense. I know Devontae Adams is out there, but the way Jimmy Garoppolo is as a quarterback, he needs the run game so he can get the ball to Devontae Adams. So it's important, it's essential, and they need to stop messing around with that. I mean, the money that you talking about giving is probably higher than they want to give him. But if you give him the Nick Chubb deal, I think he'll take it. I think he'll take the Nick Chubb deal. Nick Chubb, like right now, I mean, he's probably the same level of running back. I mean, they're right around the same. They're both like top 5 running backs. You could debate where you want to put these guys, but they're both in the top 5 running backs in the NFL. And he's getting about think about 13 million a year. And like, that's what I'm saying. It's like, how much more is that more than 10.9? You're paying him 10.9 regardless. He's going to be against the salary cap, 10.9 million. You could lower his salary cap. You could do all these things to help you sign more players in June 1st if you just work out and find a way to give him $2 more million. So I don't know. That's my frustration with that, as you can tell.
We shall see. We shall see how this plays out moving forward. But Marcus, thank you so much for your time, and hope to have you on again soon. Most definitely.
Yeah, for sure, man. Thanks for having me, and I appreciate it.
Let me minimize this real quick. I'm on the front of the struggle bus with this today.
Yeah, bro.
All right, guys, there you have it. For those that enjoyed the interview, leave your comments in the comment section. And on your way out, break them thumbs, hit them subs, smash the bell to stay up to date with all your Raiders news, rumors, updates, live streams, and reactions. You can also check out Marcus on Tape Don't Lie on YouTube. Make sure to hit that subscribe button. Trying to think, is there anything else I have to say? No. Win, lose, or tie, Raider Nation till I die. Y'all know the routine on that. New York. Shh. Peace, love, and positivity. I'm out.